Trayce Jackson-Davis was a godsend for the Warriors last season despite being the 57th overall pick in the draft. He showed the ability to play possession-by-possession defense at center, and his leaping ability impacted the team positively on both ends of the floor. His overall ability to understand the game at a high level despite being a first-year player was impressive, and he eventually took over the starting job at center late last season, where the Warriors proceeded to finish the season 9-2, with the team looking revitalized defensively with Trayce by Draymond's side, not only to start games, but to close as well. The key for Trayce this season is to improve upon his wildly successful rookie year, dominate on the defensive end, and be a two-way player. There were talks of him working on a jump shot and generally being more aggressive on the offensive end. He also had to improve his screening ability, as well as being strong enough to guard the giants of the league as the starting center for the Warriors. So how did Trayce look in the preseason? Let's take a close look. The game starts with a Chicago play for Harden to use a pin down to get a DHO with Zubac. Trayce is forced to stay in front of Harden, who dishes off to Zubac, and because the secondary defender is Draymond, he's able to hold ground and force a miss, allowing Trayce to clean the glass. This is the kind of connection at power forward center between Trayce and Draymond that can make them one of the most imposing defensive front courts in the league. High pick and roll for Curry, which is a good idea because Zubac is a cone when it comes to guarding pick and rolls. Trayce slips the screen, which has been an ongoing issue since last season due to his lack of contact creation on his screens, and unfortunately it looks like nothing much has changed in that regard. Because the corner isn't cleared, Melton's man is able to stop the pick and roll with ease, but this allows Curry to find Melton in the corner, who splashes the three. As you just saw, that was a very quick release by Melton, especially with a recovered defender's hand in his face. If Melton can hit shots like this with frequency, that will force the defense to pick its poison between the roller and the shooter. It's time to test what Trayce can do against a legit big man in Zubac, but not so fast as the refs very quickly call an awful ticky-tacky foul against Trayce. Foul trouble or early foul calls influences how players defend for that particular game, so this is something to keep in mind. Trayce does a half-decent job forcing Zubac to catch the ball outside of the paint area, but ultimately there isn't enough physicality when he does catch the ball, and it leads to Zubac getting to the exact spot he wants to get to for an easy hook shot, even with Draymond's help. Clippers are in transition here, forcing Trayce to pick up Harden for basically the full length of the court. Trayce does well initially to keep Harden in front of him, although he probably should have forced Harden to his right with Melton looking to recover especially, but Harden uses his offhand to create just enough separation to sneak through for the layup. Curry runs a pick and roll with Trayce, and sadly, Trayce slips the screen, not giving Curry enough space to work with on the attack. If Trayce wants to be more impactful this season, he must set better screens all around. Curry does get into the paint, but gets tripped up by Chris Dunn on his way, but the ref somehow misses it and there's no call on the foul. The chain reaction to the no call is a fast break for the Clippers with Curry still on the ground. Kuminga picks up Dunn, who dishes to Harden. Draymond picks him up, but as you can see, Zubac is cutting down to the lane, which means Kuminga has to make an elite decision here on a bang-bang play. Leave Dunn, who isn't a huge threat from the three, and either prepare to take a charge against a barreling Zubac, that's what Draymond would do in this position, or simply pick him up. None of this happens as he elects to stay on Dunn, and Zubac ends up with a free dunk. I do think ultimately this whole situation would have been avoided had Trayce simply set a better screen for Curry on the prior play, who wouldn't have tripped and fallen over if he had better spacing on the initial screen. The Clippers will run a ton of pick and rolls this season for Harden, and here's yet another one. But Zubac slips the screen, allowing Melton to stay attached to Harden. With no passing space, Harden tries to finish over Trayce again, but the contest bothers him and it's a defensive stop. Trayce does a great job of hard hedging on this screen by Zubac, allowing Melton to recover on Harden. He then gets back on Zubac, who attacks but I believe gets fouled by a reaching Draymond. Here Dunn sets a damn near half-court screen for Harden, who crosses the other way and goes away from the screen. Melton does a nice job of staying connected. Trayce is there for the help, so Harden dishes off to a rolling Zubac, but Curry sees the action from the weak side, sags off of number 21 to steal the pass, and out in transition they go. Beautiful defense. Warriors have an easy 3-on-2 opportunity. Curry dishes to Trayce after drawing Dunn, and Trayce finishes the play with a nice simple pass to Kuminga, who can be devastating in transition like this. Here Chris Dunn fakes a DHO to Zubac before setting the double screen for Harden. Melton gets badly screened here. I assume Curry got faked by the DHO and didn't realize he'd have to call out a screen. Harden comes off the curl, sees Trayce on the switch, and gets a short roll pass to Zubac, but Draymond, as the backline defender, sees the whole thing develop and easily picks the pass. Brilliant. This, of course, ignites the fast break because that's what happens when you play great defense. Warriors are off to the races, JK is covered, Dunn has to keep his eyes on Curry, which means number 21 had to stay in front of Melton and Harden had to keep a body on Trayce. But Harden stops running to help on Melton, who simply throws a wide open lob pass for Trayce's first look at the basket. Here Trayce has the ball at the top and notice how far Zubac is from him. There was word that Trayce would work on a 3-point shot in the offseason, but he's shown no evidence of wanting any perimeter shot in the preseason, which is disappointing because he's capable. But it doesn't appear as though he will implement any shooting into his game this season. So here, Curry fakes a DHO, then curls back to the side he started from, hoping to use Kuminga as a screener to get free. You know, off-ball Curry movement. I don't know if this was a set play, but Kuminga sees Trayce looking at him, so he pretends to come up and cuts hard to the rim. But there's nowhere for him to go because Zubac is roaming and helping in the paint, completely unconcerned about Trayce, who's once again comically open, but does absolutely nothing with it. It would be a true game changer if Trayce could simply knock down shots this open. Back to Curry trying to use Kuminga as a screener. You can see Kuminga's cut failing, and he also has no idea that Curry is coming his way. And the teammates end up colliding with each other and the play is completely broken. Yeah, they need to clean this up because this is a hot mess, and all players at all times should be aware of what Steph Curry is doing. So it is important that Kuminga sees the whole floor and recognize his job when Steph Curry is coming around to where he is. Melton tries to create something out of nothing and comes up short, but Trayce is able to grab the offensive rebound for another possession. This is where Trayce can make his money and be highly valuable to this team with hustle plays. Unfortunately, Melton misses a second attempt and it becomes a dead possession. Trayce once again slips the high screen, but this time he puts both hands on Terrence Mann to catch a momentum on his roll while also slightly stunting Mann's movement. Trayce rolls, but the Clippers defenders are packing the paint to avoid allowing easy baskets. Something tells me their defense is going to be really good this season. One thing about Trayce though is that he's a very capable passer and immediately finds Kuminga in the corner on his roll. It's imperative that Kuminga takes this shot when presented to him because he's capable of shooting really well. He hesitates here, allows the defense to recover, and then elects to take the more difficult shot with a hand in his face, and the shot comes up short. But there's Trayce once again, out-jumping Zubac for the offensive rebound. The result is an open look for Curry from 3, and if Trayce can consistently crash the glass in this manner, it's going to be a major boon for a team that's looking to launch a whole lot of threes this season. You can see Trayce has a body on Zubac the whole way down the floor, but then fails to get in proper position to defend, which means he should be behind Zubac, not in front of him. Especially not with this kind of angle. The poor positioning allows the high pass by Harden to hit Zubac on the money, and it's an easy layup. Trayce needs to be more physically imposing and make the bigs feel uncomfortable because right now, Zubac is getting some of these baskets way too easily. Some good activity from Trayce here as he calls for ice on the pick and roll, forcing Mann to pass to the corner man. Trayce drops down to rebound in case the shot goes up, then recovers back to Zubac, who runs the Chicago play with Harden setting a pin down to set up a DHO for Norman Powell. Trayce sees that Zubac doesn't actually set the screen on the DHO, so he follows Zubac on the roll rather than helping on Powell. All good so far. Kuminga is on the nail to help, but his man makes the 45 cut, which Curry decides to cover, meaning Kuminga will now have to be the nail help while being at a proper angle to recover on Mann in the corner. This is another case of not understanding personnel. Mann is not a great 3-point shooter, so if a pass is made to him and he decides to shoot on the recovery, let it be. What you don't want is to take whatever this angle is on the recovery, allowing yourself to be frozen on the baseline drive for Mann. Trayce does his best to come to the rescue, but it's always difficult to stop an NBA player from finishing when he has a clear path to the basket, as Mann adjusts in midair for the reverse layup. The only way this angle makes sense for Kuminga on the recovery is if he's trying to funnel his man straight to Trayce, but you don't break the defense by forcing early help by simply allowing a baseline drive. You must be able to put up a fight and do everything you can to make sure your man does not beat you off the dribble to the baseline. It's definitely disappointing to see this kind of fundamental error from Kuminga in his 4th year defensively, but we'll get more into film on Kuminga in a separate video. We're about to see another Chicago play with Harden using the pin down this time. But watch as he first shoves GP2 before taking off, causing GP2 to be way behind on the play, which forces Trayce to have to stick to Harden off the DHO, who's able to find Zubac for the wide open dunk. Notice, by the way, that there are 3 6'3" guys on the floor here with Kuminga at the 4. Going smaller is generally a bad route for the Warriors these days, so I would prefer they try to steer clear of 3 guard lineups, especially if you're going to stick Kuminga at the 4. We don't need to witness the nightmares of last season ever again. Also, I know Curry wouldn't be able to do much against Zubac on a switch, but a body on someone is better than nobody. And Curry was right there to put a body on Zubac at least until someone recovers for the help or tries to. So I don't know what exactly he was trying to do here. Here's another example of Trayce simply getting outworked in the post against Zubac. Because Trayce keeps the overall defense of the Warriors strong, they can live with some possessions like this. But if Trayce wants to keep the starting job, this cannot become a trend when the regular season comes. Trayce picks up Harden in transition from the half court, and this is where he can really shine as a super mobile big who can switch and stay in front of guards and wings in a pinch. Again, it'd be nice if Trayce would force Harden to the middle instead of aligning himself to let Harden have his strong hand side. Meanwhile, you can see Pods has to pick up Zubac on the switch, but Harden calls him off so he has space to penetrate. Trayce does a great job of keeping Harden in front of him. Pods is outside the restricted area in case he needs to take a charge, and the pressure causes Harden to throw a bad pass to Zubac for the turnover. Beautifully done by the Warriors defense. Here's a great example of Warriors defense being connected with 2 bigs on the floor and Trayce in slow-mo. Harden uses a double drag, but once again Zubac doesn't make contact with Buddy on the roll, allowing Buddy to stay connected to Harden with Trayce covering both the drive and the possible lob, forcing Harden to turn to Powell in the corner. Slow-mo does a great job to make sure no shot is attempted, is able to keep Powell in front of him on the drive, allowing Paz to once again slide over to take a charge. The extra help forces the miss, and Trayce is able to outjump Zubac to complete the defensive possession. Warriors are going to be well connected on defense all season long with these kinds of schemes and combinations, and it's going to take the league by storm. Trayce is the setup man to initiate the offense here, and look at the sheer disrespect Zubac shows. I can't help but wish Trayce had the confidence to simply knock down wide open looks like this, because the more you can do on the floor, the more valuable you become. But again, we can forget about this dream for now. He finds Slow-Mo on the cut, but the lane is completely clogged by Zubac, so Slow-Mo kicks it back out to Trayce, who once again doesn't even think about shooting and dishes off to Potts in the DHO, and Potts is able to knock down the wide open floater. Great. Warriors have so many capable scorers this season, it might actually not matter too much that Trayce won't have a shot in the bag. Here Slow-Mo has Harden to start, but gets screened. Moody makes the switch and finally forces Harden to dribble to his weak side, but he also gets screened, forcing another switch to Trayce. Now Trayce is on an island against Harden, who tries a fake pass to the corner, straight into a shot? Trayce doesn't fall for it at all, contests perfectly at the arc, and the shot turns into a wild air ball wide to the left. There are actual fools who think Trayce can't guard anybody in the perimeter. Well, here you go. Trayce sets the high screen for Pods, making half-decent contact, but Pods is very slow to attack off the bat, keeping his man behind but ultimately not going anywhere, which makes it very difficult to run successful pick and rolls with Trayce. At the same time, Hield is pointing to the corner, telling Pods to make the pass to Moody as he makes the 45 cut, forcing Powell to follow with no one to guard Moody because Harden decided to ball watch and completely fall asleep while guarding absolutely nobody. Potts makes the pass to Moody, who knocks down the wide open 3. And it's worth noting that Moody shot 39% from the threes in the preseason on high volume. He's in for a major role off the bench this season as an explosive scoring two-way player. A screen by Jones forces Trayce to pick up Moody's man, contests beautifully and finishing the play himself with the rebound. Trayce is a possession by possession defender, and that is why he's such a vital piece to the Warriors' success. Here's an underrated part of Trayce's game as he makes a pristine pass to a cutting Pods who somehow misses the layup. More defensive impact from Trayce as he picks up KPJ in transition, forces him to kick back out on the drive, then helps Pods on the coffee drive to force the miss at the rim. When it comes to great defense, it's a simple matter of being there to contest everything possession by possession, and that's what allows the Warriors defense to thrive and be able to consistently get out in transition for easy opportunities. You know what's crazy about this possession? Trayce got 2 straight stops here and gets no statistical credit. The only stat you'll see that came out of this play is a miss for Coffee and a rebound for Kuminga. This is why stats will never fully tell you what's truly happened in a game. The best thing about transition is the opportunity to reward the player who allowed the transition to happen in the first place, and that's what happens here as Kuminga gives a nice feed to Trayce, but he chokes the layup. Team defense continues here as Buddy gets beat off the dribble on a recovery, but Trayce is there for the help. Player 21 panics and throws a pass to Jones, but Pods dropped from the corner man to steal the lob pass. There's been a common theme with Pods in this video, and it's the timing of his help defense around the paint area has been incredible. Here, Kuminga does just enough to recover on Kevin Porter Jr., allowing enough time for Trayce to sag off his corner man to force a pass out of Porter Jr., and notice how there isn't an overreaction from the defense as Moody and Hield stay put on their men, Pods recovers back on his man, Trayce recovers back to his corner man, and the Warriors get yet another stop. It's Moody's turn to make a defensive impact as he plays the role of POA and pokes the ball away from Dunn before a pick and roll play could even be set up. Then dives for the loose ball and tips it away, allowing Trayce to get to it before Dunn can. Trayce gets the ball to a trailing Buddy in transition who decides to get the ball back to Trayce to reward him for the defensive play while picking up an assist. Beautiful basketball. Here's that problematic soft screen again as Trayce tries to set a screen for Curry with less than 5 seconds left in the possession, but all he did was trap Curry and force him to pick up his dribble. Now, Curry is stuck with 3 seconds left on the shot clock. He dishes off to Kuminga, who tries to save the day with a second left on the shot clock and somehow gets all the way to the rim, but cannot finish the contested layup. This play is on Trayce. If you understand the shot clock, that means you have to take a greater hit on the screen to free up Curry the way Looney and Draymond would. Enough of these weak sauce screens. Here's a personal matchup between Trayce and our old friend Sabonis. Trayce does a nice job of staying within the shooting pocket to take away the mid-range, then does quite possibly the nicest job so far this preseason in terms of holding ground against the big on the initial bump, then stays on top of the drive, forcing Sabonis to give it up with virtually no time on the shot clock. Kuminga allows a pass to get through on the cut. He should have been glued enough to his man where this pass shouldn't have been possible with the shot clock running out, but makes up for it with a great contest to force an air ball, and Trayce completes the play with the rebound. One area Trayce needed to significantly improve from his rookie year was his free throw shooting, as he shot a putrid 56%. This didn't make much sense to me because he shot 69.5%, which is basically 70% from the free throw line in his final college year. 70% is a lot more respectable than 56%, and he shot 70% on almost 7 attempts per game. This told me that his rookie season free throw was probably an anomaly, and it should be much improved in his second season, especially as a starter. Unlike stiffs like Gobert and Capella, Trayce has a solid foundation on his free throw shooting, as you can see here. Trayce really wanted to get Buddy open here as he basically sets a moving screen and gets away with it, and you can see how Buddy needs just a sliver of daylight to get a shot up. I'm gonna have to do a separate video on the revelation that's been Buddy Hield because this guy's been nothing short of incredible since joining this team. Trayce had major success against smaller, athletic type guards in his rookie year, and one of them was Malik Monk, who could never get going whenever he had to face Trayce as an anchor, and that apparently hasn't changed, as you'll see here. Two are ready to screen for Monk, but he rejects the screen and runs straight into an ice coverage. Watch Moody stay connected to him, allowing Trayce to be the anchor and going up vertically to completely thwart Monk's shot attempt at the rim. Monk is a very explosive player, but Trayce can match the athleticism, and he's roughly 7 inches taller. Advantage, Trayce. Here's another Buddy highlight I just had to add in, as Trayce gets the ball to a curling Buddy who sees 3 bodies on him and gets it back to Trayce, who of course promptly gets it back to Buddy. Now just watch Buddy's individual shot creating ability. It could get spooky this year with this guy operating with the Warriors bench unit, especially if he can make shots like this. More action between Trayce and Buddy as he once again comes around for a Chicago-ish play, and watch as Trayce cuts to the basket while shielding his man Len from being able to help with a Gortat-like screen. Len is able to show a hand at the very end, but Buddy takes a Curry-like layup off the glass for an incredibly difficult finish. Wow. Back on defense, Len sets a high screen for the pick and roll and Monk sees no spacing on the drive, so he kicks it back out to Fox, who drives into traffic instead of just taking the open shot, and it doesn't end well for him as Trayce meets him in the paint and gets a hand on Fox's pass to knock it out of bounds. Imposing stuff right here. On the same possession, Fox gets the ball back from Monk and tries to attack the paint again. He's able to lose Hield with a shoulder bump at the end, but Trayce is there once again to meet him at the apex, and it's just not a good idea for guys of this size to try to muscle a shot over Trayce because again, Trayce can match Fox's athleticism and is roughly 7 inches taller. Advantage Trayce once again. Moody gets a double screen from the strong side here and loses his man, forcing Trayce to be the last line of defense. It's a nice contest but better offense with a lefty hook shot off the glass. There will be plenty of possessions where Trayce gets scored on, but the key is that he's always there, and continued repetitions of this is how you build a reputation around the league over time as someone the defense always knows will be there, discouraging players from the other team from trying to get to the paint knowing there's an enforcer ready to contest every time. Here's a bit of a screwy possession. Everything starts off well with Trayce on Len and everyone else connected defensively to their man. Pods' man does a great job of screen navigation and forces a switch, and this is the kind of switch that can cause problems because now Pods is on 7-foot Len, which requires an overhelp from Kuminga. Len dishes off on the double, a free shot goes up and misses luckily, but now you see Len has Pods completely shielded, Trayce is pretty much out of the picture, Moody does a terrible job of boxing out his man, Kuminga is also overwhelmed by a bigger player, and the Kings get an easy putback at the rim. Trayce sets half a decent screen here, giving Potts enough room to attack as he finds Moody in the corner. If teams guard Moody like this season, they are going to pay. As usual, there's very little connection between Trayce and Potts on the pick and roll, which can be problematic when the shots aren't falling, but something tells me Warriors aren't going to have those problems very often this season, as everyone, including Kuminga, is ready to shoot on the catch. Check out the nice defense by Buddy here as he recovers from the screen to stay in front of his man, forcing a kick out. Moody's turn this time as he follows his man all the way to the rim and is rewarded by the help of Trayce at the rim to get yet another stop. More versatility from Trayce here as he perfectly anticipates and steals the pass to the rolling Len, and it would have been trouble had he not done so because Potts was stumbling on the play and Len would have been rolling freely to the rim with only Kuminga there to attempt to stop. Kuminga runs into trouble on this play as he's stuck on an island guarding a slightly bigger player in Isaac Jones who is 6'9" and 245 pounds. Jones methodically bullies his way to the rim, forcing a help from Trayce. As you can see, the rest of the defense entrusted the two to hold fort at power forward and center, but it failed them on this possession as Jones dishes off to Len for the wide open dunk. Watch Kuminga make up for it on the offensive end as he gets a slightly friendly switch from Trayce to Len, and he shows off his newfound ability to take a 3 off his own dribble and knocking it down with ease. Potts does a nice job of sliding his feet here on the recovery, and Trayce is at the rim as usual to contest, but this means the rest of his teammates have to step up on the following box out. That doesn't happen here as Moody stands around watching instead of getting in position quickly to prevent Len from doing this. This is the second time now where Moody does a really poor job of getting in position to rebound, and he cannot sleep like this. He sees the shot go up, which means a pass to his corner man cannot be made, so why is he just standing there? Moody does a good job here initially sliding his feet, but the offensive player has him slightly beat and probably would have snuck in a layup if it weren't for Trayce, who comes to the rescue and blocks the shot off the glass. Nice action between Trayce and Buddy here as Trayce sets the pin down, Buddy curls, receives the pass, and immediately and brilliantly passes off to a rolling Trayce who gets fouled by Len on the drive. Here's a couple more free throws to further encourage the team on his potential to be able to stay on the floor without being hack-a-traced. It's such a luxury for the Warriors to have a true lob threat at the center spot out of a key rotational player, as Moody's able to throw a simple lob to Trayce off a basic DHO on this play for the easiest bucket late into the fourth quarter. The anchoring defense never stops for Trayce, who sees the mismatch between Jones and Lindy Waters and times it just right to show up and completely disrupt Jones' attempt at the rim. This is how you execute down the stretch to win games. I'm telling you, Warriors have such potent scores this season. If Trayce can commit enough on his screens consistently to create a sliver of space for his scorers, it's going to be impossible to guard this team. This is something Trayce had some trouble with last season, balancing the ability to deter shots but also knowing when to trust your teammates so that he can properly grab rebound. You can see Trayce getting ready to contest the drive here, but he sees that Guy is there and decides not to contest, which allows him to easily grab the missed shot. The shot clock is at 5 seconds, and Len has no choice but to make a move on Trayce here. Get that shit out of here, buddy. Watch here as Pat Spencer makes a great play and tips the ball to Guy, and Trayce is off to the races. His ability to sprint down the floor and beat everybody to the punch for the slam here is yet another powerful option in transition, and in this case, the type of play that effectively ends the game. Okay, I have many more clips, but I think this is good enough for today to display the pros and cons of Trayce Jackson-Davis. Trayce will be a starter this season and will play a vital role on both ends of the floor, but especially on defense to keep the team connected. Something they were not able to do last season because Kerr and the coaching staff decided to play Dario Saric over this monster for 75% of the season. As long as they use a combination of Trayce, Looney, and a little bit of Draymond at the center spot, the Warriors have a chance to be a generational defensive team this season. Let me know in the comments how you feel after watching all these clips, and if you enjoyed this content, and you clearly did if you're still here, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, the notification bell, all the good stuff, and stay tuned for much more powerful content like this throughout the season. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.